Good morning, guys. I think we're ready now after the GDP quiz to move on now to the new topic for today, aggregate demand and aggregate supply. I'm going to be using an Active Studio flip chart on my desktop. Unfortunately, you guys don't have this installed on your desktop. So I think I came up with a workaround for you to take notes without printing. On the Canvas page, you guys are going to see this presentation has been converted into Google Slides. If you minimize my talking and speaking, then you can annotate on that slide. You need to open that or download it and open it, make a copy, download it. When you're ready to edit it, I think there's a diagonal line button. It's like an annotate tool, and it has a pull down menu. If you look at the bottom of that pull down menu, there's a word scribble. And I think that's the easiest thing that I found to use. You can scribble all over your document, and those annotations stay with your Google slide, okay? And that's how we're doing the homework. If you're lucky enough to have a printer, you're certainly welcome to print out the PDF file that I have for you there and write the good old-fashioned way. It's just when it comes to doing the homework, we're going to need to get digital since you can't turn anything in hard copy, okay? So just brace yourselves for that. All right, new topic for today. Are you seeing some words you recognize? Demand and supply. Bum, bum, bum. Don't worry. Basically, we're going to spend one day with this. It's very, very easy where we had like lots and lots of different things to remember for demand and supply. You really only have three factors that cause a change for each curve. So I'm going to give you a cheat sheet. We're going to go through this together. I think it will work if you just pay attention. We know what demand is. We know what supply is. But when you add the word aggregate, that's the new part of this today, right? That is what you need to understand. That's total, okay? And for demand, we're really talking about all the consumers. We're talking about government spending, and we're talking about business spending. We're going to part net exports on the side. If we added that, we'd have GDP, right? But we're really only talking about those three factors. There's my three, okay? Total demand in the economy. Now, total supply is everything that the economy can produce in that given time. So just think aggregate's a fancy word for total, and we're definitely talking about the macroeconomic situation. No individual prices, no individual amounts. We're going to use something else instead. Okay, so stay with me here. Okay, your first slide there is going to say aggregate demand, but there's some things here that you need to annotate and write. I'm going to underline them here for you. I think you have the part of the definition, aggregate demand, AD, is total demand for the nation, but you need to go in and add the amount of goods and services in the economy that will be produced at all possible price levels. Okay, so that's some new information for you. You're noticing that the demand curve has that extra letter in front of it, but it has the same shape, right? It's downward sloping. But on the side, there's some new funky stuff, right? This PL is going to take the place of where we had price, and real GDP is going to take the place of where we had quantity, right? What we're talking about here, guys, is a measure of inflation with PL. So I want you to see we're taking every price in the economy. We're adding them all up. We're creating an index, which doesn't have a dollar sign in front of it. And what you're getting is a measure of the price level. Okay, so if you follow here, at high levels of the price level, we're saying that inflation is really high. It costs more to buy the same amount of goods, and that means your dollar does less. When inflation falls or the price level falls, then it's kind of like saying your dollar has more buying power. So that should help you understand the shape of this curve. It's basically the same as demand, but when the price level changes, so does the level of output. All right. Real GDP and output are down where quantity was. Real GDP is simply a measure of all the stuff that we're making, right? So we're talking about how much stuff the economy can create. And by default, we're also talking about employment. How many people do you need to make all of that real GDP? So we're going to be able to use this whole model to take a look at the entire macroeconomy in one picture. But now right here, we're starting with demand. Okay. Once you get that labeled, then go to the next slide and you'll see we're talking about aggregate supply. Again, the new stuff is up here. I'm going to try not to scratch it out this time. You guys know the economy can only get so big in the short term, right? There's a limit to what all the businesses in the country can do. That's why we have this upward sloping curve that almost goes vertical at the top point, because we've maxed out our production levels and are kind of hitting a wall at that point. You also know from talks about the Great Recession and what we may likely be looking forward to in the next couple of weeks, is that we could be looking at a recession at the lower part of the curve. That's where output is really, really low, and you have a lot of unemployment somewhere we don't really want to be. As the prices rise, that becomes kind of a incentive for us to produce more, just like it was for supply. But keep in mind, we're looking at everything the economy can create in one picture. So make sure you have this. Pardon me. Make sure you have this, and make sure you have that. Okay. I'll reset the slide. Now, to make it easier for our homework, I don't want to see any curves like this. Okay. We're going to break this supply curve into parts, and that means we have different ranges of the curve. This is where it's going to get tricky for me. So let me see if I can make this work. Okay, up at the top, you guys have the three ranges, right? You can describe them verbally by saying range 1 is the flat part, range 2 is the diagonal part, and range 3 is the vertical part, right? But you need to kind of know what those parts of the curve mean. If I come down here, I should be able to write. I'm going to try using my finger, I think. All right, unemployment is going to be what you see in that flat range 1, and I want you to write it. Whew, that's too big. Let me redo that. I may have to just sketch this. Okay, so your unemployment note should go right here, and I'm just going to be able to do unemployment. Okay. Whew. I look a little psychotic there. Whoa. Unemployment. Okay, this is harder to do than I thought. Okay, so if your diagonal downward sloping AD curve falls way down low, then you know that's going to be a message for a level of unemployment we would rather not see. Okay, if it falls way up high at the other extreme, you're going to see that that would be synonymous with, or the same thing as, okay, hang on. There we go. Can't get it to go up. Woof, I'm messing that up. Let me just reset the page. Okay. There we go. All right. The upper part of the curve there, you guys can see we would have inflation. That's a really high price level, right? You can see it over here. So for this, I want you to write range 3 is all about inflation. Ugh, this is just hard to do. I need a stylus or something. Inflation. Can't spell either. Ooh, let's just have some fun with it, okay? There we go, inflation. All right, so you know we're always going back and forth between high levels of unemployment in range 1 or high levels of inflation in range 3. That effectively makes range 2, guys, and I want you to draw this, the happy place. Literally, you want the economy to fall somewhere in here. What that means with that diagonal arc up, we're going to have a little price level and we're going to have a little unemployment, but not too much that the economy wouldn't be happy and be able to produce stuff. So it's kind of like we're trying to keep the ball in bounds by keeping aggregate demand in range 2. Now, it's a little easier for you to understand if we take this and look at the next slide. We're going to put them together, okay? There we go. That's what your ADAS model is always going to look like. Let me move my face out of the way, okay? When you put the two together, wherever AD and AS intersect, that's going to tell you where the current price level for inflation is and where our current level of output is. So this is kind of a model we can use to play with and see what happens when you put the two together. I'm going to grab the AD curve, and if we had an increase in spending, I would probably shift that curve forward, right? It means basically we're going to use the same increases that go to the right and decreases that go to the left. If we go into recession, I'm probably going to choose to draw my new AD curve down here, okay? So that's how that thing shifts around. The diagonal curve, actually, this supply curve, you're going to shift it up and down the AD curve, right? An increase in AS would look like this, where you had what, like an increase in productivity. People are able to make more with less. You might also have, oil prices go really high, and you would shift that AS curve backwards. So this is just to get you to understand the mechanics of how those four curves are going to move. I'm going to tell you the specific reasons why they move in just a second, but just understand increases are still going to go to the right, decreases are going to the left. The only new thing is the diagonal supply curve, right? A decrease would be this, an increase would be that. An increase in AD would be this, and a decrease would be that. So forwards and backwards we go. All right. Let's take a look at the AD curve. Why do you have to know how that thing shifts around, right? Well, here are the reasons, and I think you just need to fill these in. The very first thing is consumption. Guys, you remember how much of the economy that is, right? 70% of all economic activity comes from the consumer. Another kind of spending we see, if you look at circular flow, is business spending. But remember, we're calling that investment spending. If you need to write in business, just so that you don't get confused, we're talking about the money consumers spend and the money that businesses invest in the economy. In the middle of our model, remember we added government. So these are the three sectors that basically are going to change levels of spending that will change AD. Look here. This is nice and easy. If you increase any one of those or more, then you're going to simply shift the AD curve forward, right? Let's say government decreases taxes and consumers start spending more. Well, that's going to look like this, okay? Let's say businesses are worried about return to recession and they stop spending. Well, that would look kind of like, ooh, let me grab my line. That would kind of look like this, okay? Have to be really, really careful with the R word, the recession word, because it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So I just reset the page. You have to be careful when you say that as an economist, because if people hear that, they start to believe it's true and they change their behavior. So that kind of makes the recession happen. We have to be sure it's happening before we say it. All right, so moving on. You guys have the supply curve as well, and the three reasons that you're going to have a change there. Legal environment, that's just a way of saying regulation. How much regulation do you have in the economy? Is there a lot of regulation which might restrict the level of business, or is it fairly manageable, right? The other thing, resource costs, just like we've talked about before, where you have basically oil, labor, anything that you use pretty much to create the output you need. And then productivity. This is how effective or how efficient your workforce is. And that can change because of an increase in technology or an increase in better training. Now, where AD had a direct relationship where an up in one of those meant an up in the AD curve, bad word, don't say that, Mr. J. What you have here is a little bit more specific, okay? If you have any more regulation, like the government goes in and re-regulates the airlines or the banking industry, and they make more laws that have to be followed, that's going to slow AS down and make us have a decrease in AS, okay? So that's probably not what we want to see right now. You're going to see probably a lot of deregulation to increase spending on the supply curve. Costs works exactly like it did before. If you have oil costs rise, for example, then that's going to cause a shift backward in the curve, okay? If you have more productivity, though, this time the curve goes forward, okay? So reference the video whenever you're confused, and you'll see that three things change for AD and three things change for AS. I think that's the end of the presentation. Pardon me while I open up the second presentation, which is basically your cheat sheet, okay? So guys, I'm trying to take all of the guesswork out of this for you, since we're not together to work face-to-face. What I did is I gave you a cheat sheet key at the top of the page, and it looks like math. It's not. You guys know how I feel about math, right? Basically, these up arrows, increase arrows, don't say the word up, increase to consumption, increase business spending, or increase government, then you're going to get an AD. So look at your prompt. If you read about any one of these, then you're thinking, hey, that's going to cause an AD increase. By reverse, if you see a decrease in consumption, in investment spending or government, that's going to switch that curve around. Okay, so it could go either way. AS is a function basically of the legal environment, of resources and productivity. And I've tried to clue you in as to how those work, right? You decrease regulation, you get more aggregate supply. You increase resource costs, and that's going to decrease your aggregate supply curve. Okay. So I've given you this as a document that you can print, or you can generate one yourself by annotating on a Google slide. But you have the reminder that decreases always go left, increases always go right. The intersection of AD and AS is marked with a 1 every time you start. And then when you draw your new curve or change the shape, you figure out where the new X marks the spot is and draw a 2 with those dotted lines. Okay. In the next presentation, the drawing demo, I'm going to show you how to draw these for homework. And remember, you'll be doing these on Google Slides, right? So feel free to take notes on paper, but you're going to have to learn how to annotate in Google Slides. So I'll leave a video with that homework assignment and kind of walk you through it. Okay. That's the end of the new information. There's a lot that we could look at here. Let's take a quick look. This is an economy in recession where AD has fallen way down into range 1. You might have a homework problem that starts here, so be warned. If you're reading something about recession, you might need to draw something that starts in recession. Here is an economy that's suffering from high levels of inflation where we've bumped up into range 3. Neither of these are in the happy place, so probably going to be reading about policies that get us back to range 2. Okay. For stagflation, I'll explain that when we draw it here. Your AS has like receded backwards tremendously, and it's caused high levels of inflation and high levels of unemployment. Watch the next video to see how that works and why it's such a big problem for us, okay? All right, so back to your cheat sheet page, guys. I hope that you'll use this. It really is designed to take all of the guesswork out of your homework, which we'll review for next class. After I go over the homework next class, we'll do a short quiz where you're annotating on top of a Google slide, okay? All right, thanks a lot. Good luck. Email me your questions. I'll be here from 2 to 3:30 today, okay? Good luck. Bye-bye.